So Halloween is coming up. I thought I would tell you a spooky story. It's the true story of Morgellons. I know there's a lot of controversy about this thing, and a lot of people are going to watch this and say, well, this guy's not even qualified to speak to this because what he's talking about isn't what I have, or whatever. Well, you know what? I've been involved in this since 2002, and off and on for the last 10 years, I've been on my deathbed over this silliness. And I call it silliness because it's all of it's just confusion. I believe that in around 2002, that time period, that there was an outbreak, for whatever reason, of a strain of sporotrichosis that, I don't know, it may have been uncommon. If it was, it's not anymore, because I know a lot of people are suffering from this very condition. Anyway, if you go to a doctor saying, "Doctor, there are things coming out of my skin, fibers and spores in this case," he will literally turn around and walk away from you. It's a diagnosis of DOP, it's delusions of parasitosis. And, well, that happened to all of us that went to a doctor back then. And so we turned to the internet, and what we found was that, well, this had happened to a child whose mother happened to be a nurse, and she couldn't get medical care. The doctor didn't know what he was looking at, or whatever her story was. He didn't look, as is the case for so many of us. And so she went researching on her own, and then apparently in an old reference book from the 1600s, she found a condition described with little drawings of things that looked like they may have been insects or something coming from the skin of people, and he, whoever wrote this book, called the stuff Morgellons. And so it was announced that this is Morgellons for whatever reason. And you know, this is a fungal infection, so you can pull the stuff out, you know, and it doesn't tell you anything. And I mean, believe me, I've been pulling this stuff out for a long time. I have studied this stuff with these tweezers that, actually this YouTube channel is named after these tweezers. People have asked me, why is this channel called Tweezer Addict? Well, it's because of these tweezers right here in this condition. I've also been examining this stuff under this textile loop, and I'm talking about this stuff's been my constant companion for over 10 years. Anyway, you can pull that stuff out and look at it, and it looks like a lot of things, but it's just fungal growth. I mean, it's no more different than looking at the clouds and going, oh, that one looks like an elephant. It must be an elephant. Well, not necessarily. And the same's true in the case of this fungal condition. You pull that stuff out and look at it all day long, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's fungal growth. It can look like anything. Well, within a range, a specific range. I actually know that range because I've been studying this crap for so long. Anyway, what happened after no one could get medical care, we turned to the internet. We find this story of Morgellons, and well, we all kind of wound up in the community of people that were suffering Lyme disease. And right now, for whatever reason, there's a lot of people with various ailments that are mysterious. They all wound up in this community, and there's a legitimately a mental health issue involved here also. And so there's this big group of people, some of whom having this fungal condition that I've been enjoying. And, well, CDC was doing a test on this back then, and, you know, I would suspect that what happened was that with this large pool of people, some of them having this sporotrichosis condition, some suffering Lyme, and some people not having anything at all except, you know, possibly some mental issues, that they did not get good test subjects. That's my assumption, because this condition of sporotrichosis, I mean, it's obvious. If anyone in medicine would just look at it, they'd go, holy crap, what is that? Just like the rest of us do. Anyway, I was there when CDC was doing their investigations, when they handed it off to Kaiser, and that's when I kind of withdrew from the community of people suffering this, because I realized that, well, there's not going to be any answers here. And so I went off on my own, and I've been studying this stuff for years, trying to figure it out. And, you know, finally just earlier this year, my niece said to me, "Hey, have you looked into sporotrichosis? It sounds like what you're describing could be related to sporotrichosis." So I looked into that and finally determined that, yeah, it's worth a shot. And I mean, my life was over at that point. I was literally at the point where I was going to make sure that my affairs were in order. I mean, it was that bad. And, well, anyway, I followed the regimen for sporotrichosis, the well-known 100-year-old potassium iodide regimen for killing sporotrichosis internally, and it worked. I can say definitively that it worked. Something I learned just a few weeks ago, though, anyone who's had this condition, now, you know that there's a pocket of the spores with the fibers that literally is tunneled through your skin at this point. It goes through the dermis, the epidermis, and down into the fatty layer below. And there's no, like, removing all of this. To actually get to remove it all is rare. But anyway, you know that there is that condition. There's various fibers in there. I know that there are tunneling fibers, the red ones, and the kind of yellow plasticky looking fibers are tunnelers. There's a fine white fiber that is the reproductive fiber. There are a few different types of black and white fibers that basically act like different shapes of springs. And that is the purpose of all of these fibers, except for the reproductive one, is just to expand this lesion through tunneling or creating pressure within the lesion to make more room for this fungal material to grow. What we also know, you can Google Morgellons cat's claw, and that is this callus that grows over the top of this. And that's the thing that had me puzzled briefly a few weeks ago, because I knew I had killed the internal infection. I actually removed it, in this lesion in my arm. I removed it all the way down to the fatty layer below the dermis. I mean, I knew what I was looking at, and it was clearly dead. The stuff easily just nudged out. I wasn't having to force anything out, so it was clearly dead. But then I still had a problem, and what I came to understand was that there was a secondary infection, and that it was this callus over the top. The initial infection inside of your body is a subcutaneous sporotrichosis. The callus over the top is an extracutaneous sporotrichosis, and they have to be treated separately. The subcutaneous, there's a few pharmaceuticals that will address it, and the topical, the extracutaneous at the same time. However, the potassium iodide regimen that I used will only kill the subcutaneous and has no impact on the extracutaneous. So I'm still actually killing it topically with some tea tree oil, a blend of tea tree oil. Yeah, and it's working, and I'm just fine. The nuts of this, though, is that there's no magic, there's no voodoo. It's at least this particular condition. I don't want to get in arguments with people that are having, you know, aliens or robots or government agents or ghosts or whatever. But if you're one of the people that has been dealing with spores and fibers and this callus, that's what it is. It is simply two strains of sporotrichosis, and that's why it seems so aggressive. If you do something that actually affects one of the two infections, the other one makes up for it by becoming very aggressive. And well, I'm going to attach the two videos that I have made on this subject to the end of this video, the first and then the second video. And that's my last word on this subject. I don't want to argue with anybody about it. I don't ever care to talk about it ever again, frankly. This has been a huge, huge slice out of my life. And all I'm trying to do here is to inform others that are suffering this, because it is debilitating and there's no medical help. And anyway, I have beaten it. I get my life back, and I'm going to go live it, baby. Anyway, good luck to you. Sporotrichosis is the magic word if you can get a doctor to listen to you. And I hope you find some relief one way or the other. My name's Charles Henry. I live in Oklahoma City. It's mid-July 2016, and I turned 53 years old a few days ago. The reason I mention all of that is I don't want there to be anything mysterious or cryptic about myself or what I'm about to share with you. For over 10 years now, I've been experiencing this phenomenon known as Morgellons, and without any medical help, I've basically been on my own to figure it out. Just like everyone else that's been experiencing this. To get right to the point, because the answer, like any good answer, is short and sweet. Morgellons, as the medical community has always claimed, does not indeed exist. It is actually a strain of a well-known fungal infection known as lymphatic sporotrichosis. I can say that authoritatively because I just proved to myself that is indeed what it is by following the regimen, the well-known medical regimen of using potassium iodide to eradicate lymphatic sporotrichosis, and it worked. I'm still healing, but there's no more fungal activity. I've been studying this stuff long enough in my own body to know, and I can say to you that indeed that is exactly what this is. That said, I'd like to spend just a few minutes talking about the experience so that other people that may have been experiencing this as long as I have will know that I am telling the truth. I was in Western Washington State in 2002, which we would later find out was one of the hotbeds for an outbreak of this condition. Western Washington, Southern California, and the Texas and Florida Gulf Coasts all had an outbreak of this condition almost spontaneously in 2002, and all of us experienced the same thing on going to our doctor. In 2003, early 2003, I returned to Oklahoma City and I began having this outbreak in my skin, fibers and spores breaking through my skin. So naturally I made an appointment to see a general practitioner, and his treatment of me was bizarre to me at the time. He looked, saw that I had holes in my skin, and I claimed things were coming out of it, and he asked me, "Have you been out of the country recently?" And, well, no, I had not. And that was about the extent of our interview, and he basically got up to walk away and said to me, "I can't help you. This is not a medical condition." And I had no idea at the time what that meant. I know now that it was a diagnosis of DOP, delusions of parasitosis. I asked him to recommend a dermatologist, and he agreed to that. And a few days later I went to see a dermatologist. Now this is still in 2003, that's been a long time ago. And the treatment by the dermatologist was kinder, but it was no better. She shot steroids into the lesions and was very nice to me, very poo-pooing to me actually in hindsight, because she thought she was dealing with a mental patient. She gave me a prescription, and I was thrilled. I was, oh, thank goodness, there's some help here. And I took the medication, and wow, it knocked me out. I was like, no way am I taking any more of that. I put it on a shelf. And years later, when I met my now wife, she said, "Oh my God, you take this?" And I said, "Oh no, that's what that dermatologist gave me for this skin condition I have," because I still didn't know what it was, and the skin condition nor the medication. And it was a very, very serious psychiatric drug. She was concerned that she'd married a nut until I explained to her, well, no, that's what they gave me for this condition. And in these years, my wife has actually cared for me. I wouldn't have made it without her. She's tried a lot of homeopathic treatments. Because that's basically, I've been on my deathbed for years now, and well, she's cared for me, like I said, and we've tried everything under the sun. Colloidal silver, diatomaceous earth, all the stuff. And all of anything that you do to this condition to treat it topically or internally, it'll work a little bit for a little while. Then it comes back with a vengeance, and that's always been a real mystery to me about this. And now, initially in 2003, 2004, when this thing was really starting to knock me down, I treated it topically with a fungicide, because immediately it occurred to me, well, there's spores and there's fibers. Well, naturally that's going to be fungus. But I could not for the life of me find anything online that related to a whole body fungal infection. And just 4 months ago, one of my nieces, who's aware of my condition, because what I've done basically is I've been studying this stuff. I've been biopsying it for years and years, and I know the mechanical breakdown of what these lesions look like, and I could draw the thing for you. I can tell you that they produce probably 2 or 3 different types of fungal spore, and that there's half a dozen kind of fibers. They have different jobs. There's tunnelers, there's for expanding the lesion, there's fibers that act like springs to create open space to allow the lesion to grow. And then there's reproductive fibers. I mean, I'm very well versed in how this thing works. But anyway, I wrote publicly about my experiences with this, semi-publicly, where my family could at least see it, so that they would know what I went through, so that if it ever came out what this thing was, that at least they would know I wasn't crazy. And one of my nieces had pretty well kept up with that, and she contacted me 4 months ago, and she said, I think that what you've been writing about, it sounds very much like this. And she sent me a link to a medical description of sporotrichosis. And I said, oh my God, I think you're right. And I began taking small doses of potassium iodide, and I felt better immediately. And then I jumped in whole hog, and I bought the materials to create a saturated solution of potassium iodide so that I could follow the legitimate regimen. And at 6 weeks the fungus basically died, and then ideally I would have gone 10 weeks, but I couldn't make it. 8 weeks was all I could take. It was a rough thing. I'm a tough guy. I've been through a lot in this life, but I could not take another day of taking that potassium iodide. Well, anyway, that's the story in a nutshell. And I'm not a doctor. I think I've made that very clear here, and I'm not giving anyone medical advice, and I surely would not recommend to anyone that you follow the potassium iodide regimen unless if you're just out of options like I was. I mean, I've been dealing with this so long that it was without proper treatment, that it was chronic, and I was convinced 4 months ago, I was convinced that I was dying soon. And anyway, I'm not dying now. I'm actually just fine. I'm getting stronger by the day. The lesions are healing up. There's no more fungal activity. I am having to remove all fibers and spores so that the lesions can heal up. My real message, though, is to the medical community. As tempting as it is to admonish you for your treatment of people that have experienced what I have, and the apparent unification against us to create this idea that we had somehow all met on the internet and gone crazy together, what I encourage you is to please examine people who are coming in with this condition. I did a search just a little while ago and found that people are still new. Patients are being created to this stuff, and you must examine them and culture the spores and the lesions so that you can give them proper medical treatment. Like I said, the potassium iodide regimen, it's been around for 150 years. This is a known condition, and the potassium iodide is so difficult to make it through. Please, to the medical community, help these people. just simply culture the spores and see what the proper pharmaceutical is to treat these folks. Anyway, I've gone on long enough. I think you should be convinced that I have shared your experience, and you know, I don't really have anything to add. Just thanks for watching, and I wish you well, and do something. And please, doctors, help people. Well, I really did not want to make this video. I was hoping I could avoid it, but, well, I can't, apparently. This is a follow-up to the Morgellons video that I shot several weeks ago, and what has transpired from that is I'm being contacted by people who just don't believe me. That's part of this whole, the mystique of this thing, and you know, if you're one of my regulars, that what I like to do is knock the mystique off of things. And so what I'm going to do is, it's way more personal than I wanted to do, really. I hate this subject, but there are people that need to know this. And what I'm going to do is show you photographs and video clips that I have collected from my own experience, using things like this little digital microscope where I shot little movies. A friend of mine sent me that because he wanted to know. And I documented some of this stuff. It's not great documentation, but what it should provide you is that, yeah, I have your experience. This is that stuff, and that it is responding to the potassium iodide treatment, usually reserved for sporotrichosis. And it's known that if it's sporotrichosis, it will respond to the potassium iodide treatment, but if it's not, it will not. So this does, so certainly it must be related to sporotrichosis. Granted, it's like it's on steroids. The stuff I'm about to show you, the fiber growth, is amazing. There's probably, like I said before, half a dozen fiber types, maybe 7, that basically do different jobs in this lesion. But the lesion itself, I believe this is a strain of sporotrichosis that attacks the hair follicles, and it mutates the hair follicle. Fibers grow from it, but it is fungal. And the spores literally draw the skin down below the surface to dish it out, and that whole area, the dished out area, fills up with various spores and fibers, and then a callus grows over the top, and spikes literally grow out of the callus into the lesion and around the lesion into the healthy skin, and it creates that hard cap for it. It's all very fascinating. I can't believe science hasn't jumped on this to figure it out. But anyway, I'm going to just show you random photographs and videos from my own experience. Everything that is that you're about to see is from my own experience. It's my body, it's my stuff, it's my weird fungus. And I'm going to warn you guys that are my regulars that don't come here for this kind of stuff. This is just gross, nasty crap. And, you know, if you're not into that, please don't watch. And for everyone else, I have some of these samples still, and we'll talk about that later after we have a look at some of this. So if you're keeping up with the "hey, what the fuck could come out of Charlie's belly button next" saga, this just did. It's a coarse fiber. It's not round like a hair. It's very bumpy and bizarre looking. But anyway, yeah, just popped out. Nice, huh? Man, this is weird. This Morgellons lesion in the middle of my right bicep grew hard and broke open, and I scraped the surface underneath with my tweezers and examined them with a magnifier to see what came out, and I found a few interesting things. This is the Morgellons fiber that people typically refer to as resembling an insect leg. I also found this on my tweezers, which is the one that people say resembles a carbon nanotube. I don't know what these growths off the side of it are. I can't imagine. That is the gel type substance, apparently. There's another flag type growth off the side. And then back where we started with the large flag type growth. I decided I would shoot that large carbon fiber next to the eye of the needle that I use for lancing these typically, and found that the eye of the needle is full of the monofilament type fibers that commonly come out of the Morgellons lesions. And I guess that is some of the gel material in there that it seems to be growing out of. Happy Halloween, everyone. I wish this was fake, but it's not. Well, I did not enjoy editing all of that together. It was just tough to do, to go through all of that at one time. You know, I've lived it. That said, I want you to understand the point of this video is that if you are experiencing those same types of symptoms, that I have had success in treating it with the potassium iodide regimen for sporotrichosis, the commonly known regimen. Now I'm not 100% healed, but I'm spore free at the moment. I'm fiber free. I don't have any of the white fibers coming out of my skin that I believe are the reproductive fibers. My shins are not entirely healed, but I'm clean in the sense of I don't have any fungal activity going on, and I still have some healing to do. You might have noticed on my arm that there's a lot of white area, and I should explain that that was one of the experiments that I did. I froze literally every bit of this off of my body, and that's how I came to know that it was an internal medicine problem. That's what all of this scarring is, but that's been a long time ago, and that's why this particular lesion on my right forearm is so tenacious, because it's very old. The fibrous mass that came out really indicates that this was a very strong lesion, but it is very clean. There's nothing in it right now, and I promise you, if I have any negative downturn in this, I will make you aware via video on this channel, and likewise when I feel like I'm at 100%, I'll also make a video to make that announcement. Wow, I just don't know what else I can tell you, but good luck. If what you are experiencing as Morgellons is the same thing that I've shown you in these videos, then I have had some success with the potassium iodide treatment for sporotrichosis. That's really all I got for you, and good luck. God bless you. Today is August 20th, the day that photo was taken. Would have been right there.